Hello, good people. Welcome to the second edition of the Africa Football Showdown. Now, the Africa Cup of Champions is well underway, 7 games in, and all the excitement will be brought to you right here on your new Africa Football Showdown. My name, of course, is Peter Okwoche. I'm joined by Mimi. Mimi, hi.
Hi, Peter. How are you? Hello, everyone.
Right, thank you very much. Enjoying the football?
I am loving every minute of the Africa Cup of Nations. Already big surprises.
Tell me more about it. And we'll come to the surprises very soon. And we're also joined by Daniel. Daniel, what a shirt.
Thank you. I mean, I figured that I might as well wear it. That's the Ghana jersey. We are not doing so well this tournament. So, yeah, maybe this will channel the luck that we need. Because our first 90 minutes or so, as you know, were terrible.
Okay, we'll come to that in a bit. But like I said, we've got all the excitement, all the drama. Let's go. We'll start off with the results from the first 7 games so far. And Daniel, if you could just give them to us in your best football commentator voice.
I don't know if I have a football commentator voice, Peter, but I'll do my very best. So it started off with a bang with Ivory Coast winning 2-0 against Guinea-Bissau. Unfortunately, your pick, Peter, there have not really come to the party. Nigeria drew against Equatorial Guinea. Egypt also drew against Mozambique 2-2. That was quite the surprise. And my heartbreak, Ghana losing to Cape Verde 2-1. And Senegal then thundering past the Gambia with 3 resounding goals. Cameroon drawing against Guinea 1-0. And it's currently 1-0 between Algeria and Angola. It's about 75 minutes played so far. As we're recording this, stay till the end of the podcast to find the rest of the results.
Absolutely. I thought you said you didn't have a football commentator's voice. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. So let's just look at some of those results, right? Let's just look at some of those results. I mean, Daniel, I know you're wearing that shirt and I know you're wearing it with pride, but what a disappointing result for the Black Stars.
I don't feel like we have enough time on this podcast for me to say exactly what is wrong with the Black Stars, but I can safely summarize it in 2 words. Chris Hughton, the head coach of the Black Stars, his style of football does not fit the squad that he has. I have nothing against a defensive game. I have nothing at all against a defensive game. Look, in this game between Guinea and Cameroon, Guinea wisely decided to play defensive, especially when they went a man down. They pulled back a point, even though they were ahead at the beginning. But wisely, they decided to soak in the pressure and then play on the break. Ghana's strength is in the midfield and the front. If you don't have the back 4 or the back 3 that can hold the pressure as much as you want, you do not play that style of football. I feel like Chris Hughton is more suited for a club where he can assemble the players that fit exactly his style. But if you're a national team coach and you have what you have, you need to adapt to the players that you have. Because I can't understand why we have an Inaki Williams. We have good players in the middle, like we have Ashimeru. It was quite the surprising lineup to begin with, and everyone was sort of excited to see what this combination of players would produce. But it just wasn't giving it. Look, as at the time that Cape Verde put in that first goal, our possession was around 20% of the ball. You don't do that when you're playing against a team that on paper you should be outclassing in every department.
Well, that's funny you're talking about on paper. That's funny because football matches are not won on paper. So I would say rip off all the papers everybody's talking about on paper. It's won on the pitch. But just quickly to mention, it's funny because right after that game, the Ghana game, Nigerians then started trolling Ghanaians on Twitter because Ghanaians trolled Nigeria earlier in the day for drawing against Equatorial Guinea. And when it came to Ghana, they lost in their match. But it was an interesting match in the sense that I think anybody that's followed Chris Hughton in the Premier League in Brighton and Newcastle will know he plays very defensively. And I guess with their attacking flair that Ghana has, maybe they've not quite reached their potential under him. And we saw in the game yesterday against Cape Verde, there was let's be honest, Daniel, there was a defensive, a lapse in the defense that led to that goal. And then many people were criticizing Chris Hughton for taking off Ashimeru, who had that goal. De Salah, Semenyo coming off Paintsel as well with the pace that they had and breaking up play, but yet they were subbed out and didn't really have the right subs that came on to really make a difference in the match.
I think the question now is a question I've been asking myself, since that match. When do we stop referring to the Black Stars as a top African nation? They haven't won this competition in 40 odd years.
They have. The last time the Black Stars won the AFCON, I was not even an idea. My parents had not thought. No, if you say I wasn't born, it was years before I would be born. I wasn't even an idea. Let's be honest. Okay, here's the point. As from when I have been following football when I was alive, the best Black Stars that we've seen have had some very strong men at the back, and we've had a very solid midfield and a certain Asamoah Gyan in front to pull something out of a hat at the very last minute. The very best we've been able to do in the AFCONs that we placed third, we went to the semis, we went to the finals, and of course in our lovely World Cup run between 2006 and 2010, what we've been able to do is soak pressure well because we had a certain John Paintsel and John Mensah at the back, and we were able to pull some individual brilliance out of players like Suleiman Tari and Asamoah Gyan.
And also your midfield, as you said, don't forget as well the Michael Essiens of the Ghana era as well, Daniel.
Exactly.
I actually saw on Twitter today somebody apologizing to Michael Essien, Stephen Appiah, etc. And Michael Essien accepted the apology.
Look, that midfield four, in my view, Michael Essien, Stephen Appiah, there was Lai Kingston ahead of the 2006 World Cup as well. And there's a fourth name that escapes me. And there was Suleiman Tari as well. Look, that midfield four is probably the best that we've assembled in about 20 years. Currently, we do have a team that is more forward-facing. You can't say that Inaki Williams and Mohamed Kudus, who had a bit of a hamstring injury, so could not be in the squad against Cape Verde, are not up to par. You can't say they are not up to par. But currently, if we are leaning forward as a team, we should play in a way that brings out the best in these boys.
Okay, listen, I don't want to spend this whole time talking about Ghana, but let's talk about some of the other results. They might not have been as seismic as Ghana being beaten by Cape Verde, but Mimi, Egypt drawing with Mozambique, Nigeria drawing with Equatorial Guinea. We didn't expect those at all.
Well, let's start with the Nigeria game. I find it quite interesting that I think people might have forgotten Equatorial Guinea's record coming into the match. Now, Equatorial Guinea had really good, I would say pretty good World Cup qualifiers for the next World Cup held in 2026 that happened in November. They had good results in that match. They didn't lose their games. Nigeria, on the other hand, drew in those results. And let's not forget at the last Africa Cup of Nations, it was Equatorial Guinea who knocked out the defending champions Algeria in the group stages. So this is a team that has been over the years getting better and better and growing. There are no minnows anymore in football. So I think people underestimated Equatorial Guinea coming into the match. For Nigeria, we have to give it to them. They created a lot of chances for sure.
I have to mention Osimhen's miss.
Yeah,
he missed three chances.
So that's what I'm going to come to. The positives that we can take from that match is they created chances. The negative is they weren't able to capitalize on those chances. So yes, Osimhen had some misses. So those are things they're going to have to work on for the next match for sure. But as we know in the competition, it's not how you start, it's how you finish in the competition. Let's not forget, Nigeria did well in the last Africa Cup of Nations. They were one of the key stories, doing so well in the group stages, and they went out in the last 16. Egypt, on the other hand, lost that opening game to Nigeria, they went through to the final. So they've drawn their match against Mozambique, but I wouldn't write them off just yet. They've been very good coming into the competition, pretty much winning all their matches. So I'm still going to give a little bit of hope for them to see how they develop as the competition goes. I'm not going to necessarily judge them on that first match, but kudos to Mozambique for really being very well organized and giving Egypt a run for their money.
They did indeed. I mean, that wasn't luck by any means. But I mean, Daniel, if we're going to be honest, the best team we've seen so far in the competition, probably unsurprisingly, are defending champions. I mean, they were imperious against the Gambia, winning 3-0.
I think the most impressive part of that Senegal win is the person who got the brace. This is a 20-year-old youngster. Lamine Camara. You expect to see those bangers from Sadio Mane, right? But it's sort of sends shivers down the spines of every other competing player when you see that it's the next generation of players that is stepping up for Senegal. I must say I was not impressed with the Gambia's defense. In almost every one of these 3 goals, there was a crowd of players around the striker, a crowd of red shirts around the striker that were caught ball watching. In the first goal, the coaches always say, the coaches always say that it's not just about the player who has the ball, but it's about the player who does not have the ball. The Gambian defenders were drawn towards possession, and then Lamine was left basically unmarked. Yes, you could count him out because he's a youngster, but if he's standing in the middle of your penalty box with no one to mark him, that's a big problem. And it happened again in the second goal.
Second goal of his, the volley from outside the 18, what a masterpiece of a goal. I really enjoyed that. Mimi, I mean, we haven't mentioned Cameroon yet. They also drew with Guinea, a disappointing result, some would say, for the indomitable Lions.
Can I just quickly come in to mention Senegal before I go on to Cameroon? I feel Senegal are one of the most balanced teams in this tournament for sure in all departments, which is, if we remember, we've spoken about Nigeria being very imbalanced. It's completely the opposite for Senegal. You've touched upon Lamine Camara. He only turned 20 on the 1st of January, just before the competition kicked off. He was just named in December in Morocco, the CAF Awards, the Young Player of the Year. This is a young player that's won the under 20 with Senegal. In the past year, he's won the under 20. He's won the African Nations Championship for, locally based players. He's won Player of the Tournament in those competitions. So he really is one of the bright stars in Senegal. He's a player that I flagged up before the tournament about how well he was doing in their matches even before coming into the competition. Looking at Cameroon and Guinea. Now, Guinea, I know that Daniel spoke about how they were very good defensively. They definitely were very good defensively, especially going down to 10 men and still being able to finish 1-1 against Cameroon. But if you look in the first half at the beginning of the game, they had a lot of pace, Guinea, and Cameroon struggled to deal with that pace. And as well, in the match Guinea they played Nigeria in a friendly before coming into competition. There was a lot of pace in that game as well that Nigeria was not able to adapt to, and they beat Nigeria 2-0 in the friendly coming to competition. So I think Guinea did very well, and they were, as Daniel spoke as well, they're very good, in defense, but as well offensively on the counter, they were really good. Cameroon, did come back with an equalizer to level it up. They did play a lot in the wide side and on the flanks rather than going maybe more in the middle, creating a bit more chances. So I guess for them, many of the fans are not happy with that result, and I can understand that. And they were missing Vincent Aboubakar. Let's not forget he's very lethal in front of goal, and he was a very big miss for Cameroon, because at the moment he's nursing an injury, but he might, I think from what we've heard from reports, he should be fine to play at some point in the competition. And he was the top scorer at the last AFCON with 8 goals. So they definitely were missing his influence and his presence in that match.
Indeed. And we will be looking ahead to the upcoming matches very soon. And we will talk about the permutations, who can go through and who could not. I mean, it's still early days just yet, but we just want to have a look at that. But a quick reminder that you can subscribe to the Africa Football Showdown podcast. Just go to wherever you get your podcasts from and type in our title, Africa Football Showdown, to pick it up. And you can also see us on YouTube. Just type in the Africa Football Showdown and follow all the latest news on our WhatsApp channel. I know in our first episode of this program, we were talking about, the three of us were trying to choose or pick who we thought was going to win the tournament at the end. I think I picked Morocco. That's what our producer Piers has reminded me. Mimi, you had about, how many picks did you have?
And I'm sticking to my picks, and I'm still going to stick to my picks until after the group stages. We have to see all of them first play. So I'm sticking to Senegal, to Egypt, and to Morocco. I'm going to stick to those three, especially as we haven't seen Morocco play yet.
And Daniel, who did you pick again?
My number one was Egypt. I was going to say Egypt, Morocco, Senegal, Nigeria. I still think Egypt has it in them. I've been reminded that when Argentina started Qatar 2022, they lost their first game against Saudi Arabia. And Egypt this time drew against Mozambique. I will not count them out of this tournament just yet. I feel like even though Senegal has been almost blistering in their first game, the competition they faced might not have been as stiff as other teams did. So I would not be so quick to put them ahead of Egypt.
I don't know why you guys cannot just be like me and pick one team. You know, I've gone with Morocco and I'm going to stick with it.
Because this competition has had so many big teams taking part and big name stars. So that's what makes it really hard this time around, Peter.
I totally agree with you. But now I want you to pick one big name star. Who do you think is going to win the Golden Boot? We already know that Lamine Camara, so far, 2 goals, leading goal scorer in the competition. But who's your money on, Daniel?
The usual suspects are lining up. I'm going to say Salah. He has a goal and an assist in that Mozambique game. So that's where my money is. Of course, we saw Osimhen also score against Equatorial Guinea, bringing them that equalizer. But yes, consistency over games, adding goals and assists, I'll say Salah.
Mimi?
I think I'm going to go, you know me, I like options and choices. So I'm going to go for Lamine Camara and Nigeria. I've got to pick my country as well. I'm going to pick Victor Osimhen. I really have faith in him that he'll be able to score more goals. He's the current African Footballer of the Year.
I'm going with Victor Osimhen as well, simply because in that match alone, he could have scored 4 goals. You know, I know he scored only 1. He could have scored 4 goals.
But he didn't.
Plus,
see, that's the thing.
The highest goal scorer in qualifying for the competition. I mean, surely there's something about him. Plus, you know, I always say Victor Osimhen, the man is a baller. He's a real baller.
What form is he bringing into the tournaments, though? That's what I keep thinking.
Well, I mean, I do agree with you on that level that, you know, club form is different from international form, simply because you don't even have enough time to train with your international teams. I think they had 2 weeks or thereabouts, you know, whereas, you know, you're training day in, day out with your club mates. So, but, you know, I think...
And don't forget, he's had injuries as well this season, Daniel. I mean, you know, you shouldn't forget that as well. And he's still banging those goals. And Napoli's not the same that it was last season as well. You have to think about as well him getting the service for his goals and counting in there as well his injuries. But he did have that wonder assist for this season. So he still has it in him.
All of that still goes to my point.
I still dream about that
coming into the tournament.
I still dream about that assist Mimi's talking about, where he juggled the ball around between 4 or 5 defenders and still managed to pass the ball for the goal. Brilliant. You know, I mean, it gives me chills. Okay, guys, let's move on now and look ahead to the next games that are coming up. Daniel, with that wonderful football commentator's voice of yours again, can you give us the upcoming fixtures?
I don't know what football voice you're talking about. Anyway, guys, sorry, I lost my lights. So I'm going to have to lean in a bit on this one. Upcoming games, exciting matchups coming up. Burkina Faso is facing Mauritania, and we want to see what Burkina Faso can do in this game. Tunisia will play against Namibia. Mali, South Africa. I know Mali was one of Mimi's picks in this tournament. We want to see if they can hold their own against South Africa. or South Africa can pull a surprise. Morocco is a tournament favorite all round. They are facing Tanzania. Another surprise, I don't know. And DR Congo would face Zambia, which you can't count out nowadays after they picked up that AFCON off of Cote d'Ivoire of all countries.
Indeed. I mean, and they surprised everybody with that win. But, Mimi, do they still have the copper bullets, the Chipolo Polo of Zambia? Do they still have the capacity to surprise, or has their quality waned since that win?
Well, I mean, Zambia over the past few years have had a team that they've been building and who have been putting in some not bad results at all, to be honest. They've got Pasandaka, as we know, who plays for Leicester City in England. He's still very much a quality player. Rainford Calabar as well. And we've seen them steadily grow as a group of those players since winning the under-20 AFCON. But it's sad that they've had Enoch Mwepu, who was also very key as well in this up-and-coming young side of Zambia, having to retire from football because of a heart condition. So they're a team that we never know. We've seen so many surprise results so far in this competition. So don't rule them out is all I would say.
Indeed. And another big game there that Dan has also mentioned, Mali versus South Africa. I mean, on paper, that's a huge game.
Yeah, definitely a big game. And especially when you look at South Africa under Hugo Bruce. Since he's taken over South Africa over the past couple of years, we have really seen them, do really well, have a massive turnaround, a revival of Bafana. So he's a manager that knows how to win an Africa Cup of Nations. In 2017, he won it with Cameroon in Gabon when many people were tipping Egypt, who were in the final, to win. So it's been interesting to see how he's been turning the fortunes around steadily for South Africa and Mali as well. Coming into the tournament, they've had some decent results in the World Cup qualifiers, or the next World Cup being held in 2026. And they're one of the sides that I see as one of my dark horses, along with Guinea, that could do well in the competition.
Indeed.
I just want to add.
Yes, go ahead, Daniel.
Pete, I just wanted to add a quick word in about Zambia. They've had a very interesting history since they won that AFCON in 2012. I would have you know that was the last time they won a game in the AFCON. And they exited the group stages in the next two competitions. They did not qualify in the next three competitions. But now they have Avram Grant. That's Chelsea manager who came up also with, who also coached Ghana quite recently. And he also did so well, got to the semi-finals of the AFCON with Ghana. So currently, I want to side with Mimi when I say that young squad that won the 2017 and the 20 AFCON might...
2020.
Yeah, sorry, the 2017 and the 20 AFCON
Yes.
might pull something out of a hat. In the last 6 games, they won 2 and they lost 2, they drew 2. It's a bit balanced, but there's a moment for Zambia. It's now.
Okay. Now, I just want to look ahead to what I'm referring to as Big Thursday, because some big games on that day. Equatorial Guinea take on Guinea-Bissau. If Equatorial Guinea can pull off a win in that match, then, they've got 4 points in a very, very tough group. Ivory Coast versus Nigeria. It's a game that Nigeria really needs to win, or at least get a draw in. And Egypt versus Ghana. Daniel, if the Black Stars lose, they could well be out of the competition.
It will be no surprise if Black Stars exited in the group stage. That's what we did the last AFCON. Unfortunately, so I'll be eating all my food in the morning before that game begins. So that
Will you still be wearing your jersey as well, Daniel?
Look, I'm wearing it after a Cape Verde loss.
Will it fit you after all that food?
I'm wearing it after a Cape Verde loss. If I wasn't in cold London, I'd be wearing it to work, honestly. But look, I think that there's all to play for in that game. I believe we can come out of that game with a draw, even though Egypt also really needs that win. For our group, it's going to come down to the final leg of games. There might be a few calculations that we have to do before we qualify.
Ghana and calculations, and that calculator go 5 and 6 hand in hand, Daniel.
We do very well in elective maths. We do very well in elective maths.
It's not just the top 2 teams from all the 6 groups that qualify. the best performing third placed teams also qualify. Mimi, how does that work?
Yeah, so as you said, the top two teams go through, and the best four third place teams stand a chance of going through. And I'm sure when it gets to the crunch of things, Peter, they'll as well will be looking at the number of goals. So that's why I think teams will be trying to score as many goals as they possibly can. And we've been seeing quite a few goals in the group stages. So we've spoken about, of course, Ghana and Egypt, which is definitely a big match to look out for on Thursday. But equally, as we said, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire. That is going to be a very big game for both sides. Now, remember, I think you were there as well, Peter, in 2013. I was there in the stadium at the Africa Cup of Nations, in South Africa, when Nigeria knocked out Cote d'Ivoire in the quarterfinals, and they had the golden generation of players, the Yaya Tourés, the DJ Drogbas, who were on that side. But things are very different this time around. The Ivory Coast are playing at home. Seko Fofana is a threat going forward as well. You've got players in the Ivory Coast squad, Frank Kessie, the players that can create those opportunities, tighten that defense and take their chances when they get them. And that's what Nigeria are going to have to do when they play Ivory Coast on Thursday. I mean, a good thing, I guess, for Nigeria, as there was no Kelechi Iheanacho in that match because he had arrived just a few hours before the game kicked off. Teramofi as well came as well a few hours before. Don't forget, replacing Nigeria had quite a few injuries. Sadiq Umar, Victor Boniface. So we will see if any of those players will participate. But it'll be good to see as well Kelechi, because he's a player that can be creative and can be the difference in creating those chances or scoring those goals.
Listen, guys, I can talk football with you guys all day long, but we're running out of time. So we're just going to end here with a quick reminder that listeners can download our podcast. Just go to wherever it is that you get your podcasts from and type in the Africa Football Showdown, or come and see us on our YouTube channel. Yes, we're there on YouTube, the Africa Football Channel Plus. You can also get all the latest news on our WhatsApp channel. Guys, great to talk to you again. See you next time. Bye.
See ya.
You don't feel